secrecy. New buzzword, less transparency. So they slowed the bill down. I go over to the House. Chairman of the committee ran that bill through. On the House floor, I worked with a conservative person and a liberal person from two different parties. They were threatening to put an amendment on the bill. The chairman of the committee knew that it was more than likely it was going to create a big debate on the floor. Pulled the bill. At that same time, I went to Pat Doyle, a reporter for the Star Tribune. They did a big story on it. So, you know, I'm just trying to say it's not all roses where, you know, most 99%, the 98% of legislators, like these three legislators here, are people who will listen to you, and as much as they can, they're honest, good, hard-working people. But there is an element, though, that will, you know, I'm talking about the individual, you know, the individual. Who are you? You're nothing. You know? And so, as a new representative said to me, and I was very, and I don't wear ties, I don't wear suit coats. I do sometimes look kind of scruffled sometimes because I get up at 4 in the morning to work till 2:30. And then I hang out there for a couple hours during the session and talk to people, let people who know me. So I go to this new legislator and says, I have an interest in your bill. It was very specific. Again, I took the time. Mr. Morrow and other folks have said, you can find a little info. He says, your bill, what this bill will do, have an impact on the ability of people to get access to blah, blah, blah. You know, the freedom of information, to be able to get information. And you knew the indifference was. And we talked and said, you know, whatever. I said, well, there's 133 other reps I could talk to. Now, that guy didn't know me, you know, whatever. It was probably first, and you know, the individual, and maybe some long, like hair, I don't know, folks. I used to have long hair, longer hair than this, and a beard like this. And so, and you know, but the point was is that representative, oh, now I know who you are. It has nothing to do with, you know, power or anything, but they know that at least I've been around the block and I can help people do better legislation. Because what he did, he asked other legislators. He was this skinny guy with long hair, looks like he worked all day. Because I work for Metro Mobility. That's what I've been doing for the last almost nearly 30 years. It was probably on a winter day when I was helping older people and handicapped people and get some mud on my work clothes. But, you know, there's the interest that drives it there. So it's a long answer to your question, but it's an important one. What is so important is persistence. And again, there will be some people who are real good and open to hear, but they're also busy. So that's why maybe not set up an appointment, but catch them at committee meetings. Or, you know, one of the roadblocks for me has been sometimes, well, Mr. Neumeister, you're not a constituent. Well, Mr. Neumeister, you don't represent an organization. I said, fine, well, I'm just trying to help your boss not have egg on their face on kinds of things. See, privacy and openness in government, for a lot of people, it's not the sexy things that people like to lobby on or introduce or things, but because I've developed some expertise, not get paid for it, I try to help people if your bill does this. And, you know, because legislators, they walk people through. And they don't want to be, you know, they don't want to be sold a bill of goods by someone trying to do something or whatever. And that's why, hopefully, most legislators have their doors open for people to hear things.
I agree with Terry. Constituents are first in Maine. But as a new legislator, I was just so excited, and I am still very excited. So I'm learning. You want to learn, you want to grow. So definitely if it's an interest of mine, I want to hear from people, regardless of who they are. It's just a way for me definitely to expand my knowledge and just hear from different groups of people, and to help expand my worldview of how people see the world and why and what's important. So I spend probably a huge amount of time just engaging with a lot of different people on a lot of different issues.
I was hoping to go last because I was going to make a nice list so I could come up with like Mr. Morrow. And thank you, but the list is short. I agree with Mr. Morrow. Constituents get the first the time, you don't have the time. You got to prioritize constituents in your district get the first. They always get the attention first, then the issues that you're working on, that you're interested in. So that's all I got.
Thank you. I think a good question and a good piece of information for all of us here, because we do have some lobbying efforts coming up. For those of you in the audience that don't know, there are some lobbying efforts coming up that you can get involved with, both through the Student Senate and through MSUSA, which is the broader student organization for the mid-SKU institutions, both the 2-year and the 4-year colleges. And in the spring tends to be when those lobbying efforts take place. So part of the effort here tonight is to arm you to possibly think about coming and helping out with those lobbying efforts. So one question, and it's kind of a two-part question, because lobbying at the legislature, and primarily towards professional lobbyists, has a lot of rules and regulations around it. How is that different for a citizen lobbyist when they're representing a group like MSUSA or coming through a student organization like the Student Senate here at Metro State? And then secondly, what would you recommend to prepare us as citizens coming on these lobbying efforts? What's the homework that we can do to be prepared and be effective when we do come?
I think there's different ways of how you can do this. One is, what's the bill? What's the subject? What's the bottom line? I see citizens groups come up there for rallies and, hey, let's do this, do that. And Minnesota student associations do that all the time. You go and visit their legislators. But a lot of them never follow through. It goes back to that point that Representative Morrison. And so what happens, the legislators are bombarded with many things. And the important thing is to follow up. I've always believed, again, it depends if you're lobbying for money, different ballgame. But if you're lobbying with words in a statute, words mean things. Words mean maybe the difference of you going somewhere, whatever, or the detour for education or whatever. It's an area that I have not focused on higher ed, but words mean something to us. And I think it's important. People, if you really have a question and you don't feel it's answered, then talk back respectfully. I don't understand what you mean by that. A lot of political people give you pat answers. But that's up to you, again, how informed you are, how knowledgeable you are about the bill or whatever. Number two, so you can talk to individuals about that. Again, go to your representative or your senator. Number two, other folks. The second one, and I think it's a fantastic thing to do, is the hearing process. Minnesota has one of the most liberal, again, not political, but broad access to public hearing processes and the legislative process in the country. So if you know your bill that's coming up, say you want to testify, you can be very powerful, make people light up, or you can be boring, and I've been both. And one of the things, though, that I'll do, did you hear what I said? because what happens, you follow up, and you say, no, and why, how, why, that's the important thing. But the thing is that you can use the hearing process to at least get your viewpoint across, and if there's 3 or 4 of your group, you can start hitting on your points. That's one of the ways, because I don't have the time. I'm not like a regular lobbyist who gets paid for it, who has a secretary, who can do some things, who then can get companies who they might, through their trade association or associations, you go for the bang for the buck as much as you can at the opportunity you have. But again, laws are made by those who show up and stay late. That's a little term, there's an old saying that revolves around those who show up. I've taken it to that literally. So that's one of the things I've showed 2 things. And don't feel intimidated. There are many people who feel intimidated. I see many citizens at the Capitol, and I'll take and help citizens get an understanding. And it's kind of neat. If I see them a couple days later or whatever, because I've helped many citizens. I've seen them get bulldozed by the system or whatever, it's all over the place. And they come back, yeah, I can make a difference.
I would say do your research. And don't always be under the assumption that we know everything. Be ready to educate us about the pros and the cons of a bill, the impact it will have, it could have. And the bigger part for me as a lobbyist or a citizen, a constituent, spending time building some relationships. Relationships are crucial, they are important. For people to get to know you, who you are. You've been there for how long? People know them. No. So spend time doing those one-on-ones. Set up those meetings and begin to inform, engage, and educate us as legislators on the impact that a bill can have. Because you may bring a perspective to the table that we don't have, we don't know about. So do that. So do your research, do your homework, come there ready to inform and educate. And always at the end say, well, who else should I speak to? Who else can give me some support? Who else can inform me so that you can be as good as you would like to be? Because it's what we're doing there is really about creating laws and policies that you have to live by. And I believe that you want the laws and policies that we are creating to support what you value and what you see is needed for yourself, your community, in our state.
I hate to keep coming back to Mr. Morrow. See if I can get this right. You had a good list earlier. You have an idea, gather your information, do the research as Rena has mentioned, have the ask, do the follow-up. I will add 6 to that. Coalition building, relationships. I mean, it seems almost obvious that someone in a caucus, someone was talking to a little while back, and they got up and they stood up and they thought they had a great kernel of wisdom. It's about relationships. They said, this is all about, everything we do is about relationships. So, but in this business, it's a coalition building. And so that's number 6. And just as an example, there was this young man at when high school, he's a senior, he wanted to be there doing a research project, and they had an idea. Not only did they have an idea, but they talked to the CDC, they talked to the Attorney General, they talked to everybody, people I haven't talked to yet. And they brought that data forward. They actually, did we get follow-up today? Mr. Dahlquist? An email, yeah. So he followed up, so he followed the steps. So we'll just go back to the list we had earlier and add coalition to it. Thank you.